You know something, Spurs fans? I didn't see the big picture right away, but now when I look at what we're doing, popping the front office, nothing short of brilliant with a little sprinkle of fleecing in here and there.
Go, Spurs, go, 'cause the Giants stay.
What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans? Welcome to TSR Sports. I caught this article from CBS Sports and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the big picture. I didn't see it right away. I'm more reactionary, like, why are we trade doing? What are we doing? But I see what we're doing, and I want to share this article with you here and now. By the way, that grade is for the Spurs trade with the Bulls and the Kings to get Harrison Barnes. Just for the record, they gave the Kings a D-. So anyway, how does San Antonio keep getting away with this? Last summer, it was Grant Williams. If you don't remember the Grant Williams trade, it was for Reggie Bullock in an unprotected 2030 pick swap from the Dallas Mavericks. Bullock was eventually bought out, not with the Spurs anymore. Once a Spur, always a Spur. Let's move on. And on draft night, it was Rob Dillingham. The Spurs just keep finding ways to extract valuable first-round pick swaps out of financially desperate teams several years down the line. At this moment, they control 5 swaps between 26 and 31. Atlanta's in 2026, Boston's in 28, the Mavs and the Timberwolves in 2030, and the Kings in 2031. Okay, so we got a lot of options. We should be a perennial playoff team, maybe even probably a championship team at that point. So having lottery options is good. We'll get on that a little bit later. There's a very clear plan in place here. They are not rushing the rebuild, unlike the Kings. Ouch. They have 3 years left on Victor Wembanyama's rookie deal, and they intend to use those years to financially prepare for his entire career. Yes, he's going to be with the Spurs his entire career. Stop it, Lakers fans. He's not going there. So they use their cap space to take on players like Barnes and Reggie Bullock in the short term in exchange for lottery tickets in the long term. Many of them could be duds, sure, but at least one of them is going to give the Spurs a valuable pick, and that's the entire point. Our San Antonio Spurs understand the financial landscape that the new CBA has created. They, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, have decided that the best way to navigate the second apron minefield will be to cycle in new, cheap young players as soon as their existing veterans become too expensive to retain. See DeJounte Murray. Too expensive, and then we got way more than I ever thought we would get for him. Jakob Poeltl included. We've made some good trades. We've done well. That Hawks trade feels more and more like a fleecing, the biggest fleece we've had in recent memory. The idea will be to organically replenish the supporting cast around Wemby without ever having to make the sort of high risk, here are multiple first-round picks for an expensive veteran trade that most other contenders are making today. Yes, we are seeing that. The Timberwolves gave up a boatload for Rudy Gobert. The Knicks to bring in Mikal Bridges, to give up all these picks and put your whole future into this one player, hoping to win now. Yeah, I get wanting to win, but if it doesn't work in those few years with that player, what's your future like? Like, are you going to be tanking for 5 years, 10 years? The cost to bring players in right now is an all-time high, which is why I don't think we're going to get Lauri Markkanen, just for the record. I don't see anything else happening with that. It's too expensive. 5, 6 first-round picks for players is ridiculous. The Spurs grabbed this model so well, talking about the Thunder's model, and not actually their own model here too in a second, because even if it was somewhat accidental, they've lived this reality before in 2011. As a number 1 seed, they were upset by the number 8 seeded Memphis Grizzlies in the first round of the postseason. Timmy was 35 at that point, Manu was 34, and it looked like their dynasty might be over. And then they traded George Hill for the draft pick that became Kawhi Leonard, and they extended that dynasty for about another half decade. The Spurs know firsthand how transformative the right rookie can be when you already have an older contending roster. And with this trade that we're talking about here, all they had to do was absorb Harrison Barnes' contract. That's right, I didn't mention it. I thought it was implied, but we gave up nothing for Barnes but taking on his contract. Do you realize he could be here to help mentor our guys for a year, half a year, and then we trade him for another asset? That's a win-win. Mentors our guys, helps us maybe win a couple games. I know some of you don't want us to win, want to be tank next mode next year. I don't see the Spurs ever tanking again with Victor Wembanyama on the court. And then we get another asset for him. Same thing with Chris Paul. I don't think he's going to be here long. I think he might be here just a half year and then gets traded to a team that needs a backup point guard. They're talking about the Thunder again, so let's get into it. This is another classic Thunder tactic. Take on a good player, they're talking about Barnes, of course, from a team that just can't afford to keep him anymore. Rehabilitate his value, and then flip him for something positive value a year later. The Thunder did this with Al Horford. Now, I don't remember this, but this is great. For example, getting a first-round pick to take on his contract from Philly in 2020, and then getting another first rounder to flip them in Boston a year later. Worked out for Boston, you won a championship, but you see the point here. If you're not in win-down mode, take on some of these contracts, these vets that the other teams can't afford, and then flip them to teams that are trying to win right now and get more draft assets. And we'll close with the article with this. Teams that trade with the Kings tend to do well, and teams that trade with the Spurs tend not to. It looks like the trend is continuing in this deal. Okay. The Spurs really are following the Thunder blueprint right now, and more and more makes sense what we're doing long-term, like trading the Dilly pick. I think CP3 and Barnes will be traded before the All-Star break, and again, it's a bonus to mentor the guys and get more assets. If you look at our recent trade history, I talked about DeJounte Murray, the Jakob Poeltl trade. We're doing pretty well. Sure, we got a million second-round picks as well. The Spurs are, Monday starts going to start selling those for cash considerations and cap, whatever it is. I get it. I get the long-term plan. The long-term plan is obviously to keep Wemby here his entire career and then build around him. Some of those guys will be lifers. Some of them won't be on the Spurs roster, as in guys we draft. But it's always going to be to put Wemby in the best position, and the Spurs, of course, to succeed. And in regards to Brian Wright, I know some of you are like, TSR, Brian Wright's a doofus. Look, his draft picks have certainly been Brian wrong at times. And that's the organization, too. It's not just him. There's been some picks. The Primo one's the biggest example. You're scratching your head and you're like, why do we draft him? But look at what the Thunder are doing. Look at the Thunder's blueprint. It looks great right now. The Thunder are a playoff team and just had a lottery pick, 12th overall. Lottery picks when you're a playoff team? Not just a lottery pick when you're a playoff team. This was a top seed in the Western Conference. That's a win. Can you imagine in 2030 where we have those pick swaps? If one of those teams sucks that we have, what was it, the Mavericks and the Timberwolves? Might be getting, there's a lot of pick swaps. I might be getting confused. But imagine we're a championship team at that time. And then one of those teams is back to just being mid or sucking. And then we get like the 7th overall pick as a championship team? That is ridiculous. I get what we're doing. I didn't see the big picture. I understand we want to be better immediately because we've been bad for so long. But I see the big picture. I honestly finally do. And I hope everything works out as planned. Because this could blow up. Look, this is not foolproof for the record, Spurs fans. This is not foolproof. This could do a 180 and just backfire left and right. But I get what we're trying to do. Doing it right. And there's maybe a little dose of fleecing in there somewhere, especially with the DeJounte Murray trade. That I still think that's our best trade in the last, probably since the Kawhi trade for George Hill, right? Yeah. So Spurs fans, drop a comment down below. Is this kind of making sense, what we're doing? Maybe why we're not keeping players like Dilly, why we're taking on players like CP3 and Harrison, especially the Harrison Barnes one, where we just got him, we're paying his contract, but essentially got him free. We didn't have to give up anything. Is it making more sense to just continually build around Wemby and any other pieces that are going to be mainstays? I'm hoping Stefan Castle plays his whole career with the Spurs as Wemby's point guard, and that's a 1-2 punch. You know, there's probably going to be a big 2 or big 3 with Wemby, him being, of course, a centerpiece. And there's going to be changing parts throughout his career. Just like Tim, Manu, and Tony. They had those 3, and there were a few other parts that were pretty consistent, but it did change throughout the career here and there. And I think that's what's going to happen with the Spurs. And I hope everything plays out the way we want it to. So drop a comment, let me know. Or if you think Brian Wright and front office are just doofus, hit the thumbs up, support the channel, and subscribe to become part of our awesome San Antonio Spurs community. I thank you for watching, and as always, go Spurs, go.
And then you pass it to Wemby.